legal settlement.
If this legislative body does not vote to pay that, then what would be the next steps? What will happen then?
House Republicans refuse and quietly open an investigation into the Attorney General. The result of the legislature's investigation, that is what led to the 20 articles of impeachment. But let's back up here and put the pieces of this puzzle together. It mainly centers around one of Paxton's many political donors, a man named Nate Paul. Prosecutors say Paxton went out of his way to help Paul, did things for him as Attorney General that benefited Paul, not taxpayers. Things such as blocking public information requests to protect Nate Paul's records in the Texas Department of Public Safety, writing an official legal opinion as Attorney General to protect Nate Paul's properties from foreclosure, and appointing a special prosecutor, among other things, to investigate issues for Nate Paul. What in the world do you think Ken Paxton saw in Nate Paul?
Look, he clearly should have had better judgment about Nate Paul. Obviously, he's facing very serious problems right now. There was chatter and I think doubt about his business empire, how quickly he emerged as a major player, really kind of out of nowhere, and the way he was operating, his flashy lifestyle. So I do think he probably showed some poor judgment there, and perhaps, trusting Nate Paul's word as much as he did.
When Paxton's top staff, his own deputies that he handpicked, finally blew the whistle on him, Paxton fired that group. They sued, and Paxton agreed to settle the lawsuit. Problem is, he asked the state legislature to pay that settlement, $3.3 million of taxpayer money.
He wants Texas to eat the money. I'm sorry, but unless Ken Paxton reimburses the state of Texas for what his actions cost us, then he's dead to me. I'm sorry. It's that simple.
David Leith is a Republican precinct chair in Collin County, one of the guests on this week's episode of Y'all-itics, and evidence of the sharp division among Texas Republicans. Paxton denies he did anything wrong, and grassroots Republicans still support Paxton. They disregard the impeachment trial. Traditional conservatives, though, say let this rare process play out.
You've got two candidates there, both of whom have some really unsympathetic nature. How do you look at that race? Which one do you think is going to emerge from that? I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Which one do you think is going to win that primary, and who do you want to run against?
I honestly would relish the opportunity to prosecute the case against either Ken Paxton or John Cornyn. I was a part of that bipartisan majority in the Texas legislature that impeached Ken Paxton. And you're right, his billionaire mega donors paid our lieutenant governor $3 million, literally a check for $3 million to get him off the hook. But I'm very familiar.
It was what it was.
I'm very familiar with his crimes and his corruption, and would welcome the opportunity to make that case to the people of my state. But we oftentimes think of corruption as just involving money or involving something illegal, but that's not the case. And John Cornyn is a perfect example of that, because John Cornyn was the deciding vote on that big, ugly bill that will kick millions of Texans off their health care. It'll literally take food out of the mouths of hungry Texas kids, all to fund tax breaks for John Cornyn's donors.
The Senate barely passed a spending and tax bill that would add trillions to the national debt. KENS 5 reporter Zach Briggs breaks down the potential impacts on low-income Texans.
San Antonio Food Bank CEO Eric Cooper has been keeping extra busy in Washington, pushing lawmakers to reconsider historic spending cuts to SNAP.
Just begging, right, that they make a decision to help families put food on the table.
The so-called Big Beautiful Bill includes more than $4 trillion in tax cuts. To help fill the gap, the federal food assistance program would be slashed by more than $180 billion. States would be required to foot the bill for a portion of SNAP benefits. Policy changes would also expand eligibility requirements, in turn potentially limiting access to SNAP.
It is the biggest betrayal of services to those that are vulnerable that I've ever seen in my 32-year career. We're literally taking money from the poor and giving it to the rich. It is the opposite of Robin Hood.
The Senate's bill, now being debated in the House, proposes reducing Medicaid spending by nearly $1 trillion. This could jeopardize healthcare access to more than 1 million Texans.
Between 1.6 to 1.8 million people, Medicaid cuts alone, the potential for 15 or more rural hospitals to close, which means you're now limiting health access.
Corruption is the betrayal of the public trust. It is the use of a public office to enrich the people who are funding your campaigns. And that's exactly what John Cornyn did on the largest scale.
Yep.
I mean, that is corruption of the highest order. And so I look forward to making the case against either one of those two Republican candidates. And I hope I give the opportunity as the Democratic nominee to do so.